This chapter we're talking about passioneering. Now, Steve Jobs said that if you're not passionate enough about a subject, a wrong to be righted, or something that needs to be done, you will never have the strength to stick it out. Passion is such an important thing. I don't know if you grew up with little maxims. I've always been a collector of sentences, and my mom sort of started me out on that because she had all sorts of better to have it than not need it, and what were some of the other ones? I wrote them down. Where there's a will, there's a way. That was a big one for her. But her famous most one I remember was, nothing great was ever accomplished without enthusiasm. Nothing great. Without passion, things are just not going to get done. You can be curious about a problem. You can be creative about a problem. You be collaborative about a problem. But if you're just kind of Yawnsville about it, it's not going to be ready to package and ship. You're not going to have solutions. It's not going to actually come into reality. So I want to encourage the passions of your heart. And there's so many people that are passionate in the world that we should learn from. One of them is Bill Gates. And he was passionate about sewage, of all things. I hope you're not eating right now, because I'm going to talk about human waste. There are over several billion people in the world that don't have access to clean water and good sewage removal. And so this creates all sorts of diseases and things. And Bill Gates has been so passionate about this. He said he wasn't much of a dinner companion at fancy dinners because that's all he could talk about. That's all he read. He did a contest on how to do disposable toilets. This was like his passion. He was fixated on sewage. Now, maybe sewage is a little too ucky for you. I get that. But what about rocking babies? One lady who had a child, a baby born prematurely, she would just rock her baby in the NICU unit. And then she realized that many babies were being born that no one had time to rock because they were born to drug-addicted mothers. So they were born addicted to drugs as well, or had fetal alcohol syndrome. And so she got an army of women to just go in and rock babies in the NICU. And that was so successful, she convinced this hospital in Texas to create a little apartment for mothers so that they could be trained how to bond with their babies and how to rock them and how to care for them. Because a lot of the mothers would just have the babies and leave the hospital and not take the baby with them. So from sewage to rocking chairs, you have to have a passion for a thing, a driving passion for a thing to see it solved. Now, Thomas Edison had an unusual passion, and that was cement. He founded the Portland Cement Company, and he made houses out of cement, pianos out of cement. He was trying to cure mildew in walls and infestation of things into things, termites and all sorts of things. And it never quite caught on because Portland Cement Company, their machine that made houses was kind of expensive in the day. It was like $125,000 to create these things. But Thomas Edison made everything out of concrete, just almost everything but food. And he thought it was a great solution to urban blight and for poor communities because you could build a house. There's a few houses still left that Thomas Edison built out of concrete, but he had a passion for it. He had a burning passion. I want to ask you, what makes your heart burn? What makes you cry at night? What makes you distressed that is something that you could bring cure to? What is something that distresses your mind and your heart on a continual basis? That's usually a clue that may be something that you want to bring cure to. There are so many different kinds of passion, and all of them have within them the ability to bring cure. One Brazilian gentleman has a passion to bring historical figures to life. So he paints them on huge buildings all over the world, in world cities. And you can see some of those pictures. We've got links for that in the notes of how do we create more literacy about famous people that have done things that are beautiful or have changed the world. Well, let's just make them 100 feet by 50 feet and put their portrait where everyone can see it. He has a passion for bringing beauty, but also a historical literacy. Now, one of my favorite stories about Wally. Wally was a man who was really concerned about famine and people not being able to eat. And at the time, there was all sorts of earthquakes and tragedies that were happening, still happening today, of people being hungry. And he realized in Central California, lots of fruit was just thrown away because it might have had a little spot on it, or it might have been a little mushy or something. So he found a place that would rent him, an old canning place, a place to dehydrate fruit. Now there's tons and tons of fruit that's just thrown away. In fact, 40% of all food grown is thrown away. It's a very sad fact. But Wally found a way to dehydrate discarded fruit in a healthy manner and ship it to places all over the world that were in calamity. And it just grew and grew and grew. You can read his story also in the notes of Wally just saying, what's something we can do? How can my passion turn into a solution, a cure, a product perhaps, a bag of dehydrated fruit? What could we do? And so Wally started feeding millions of people just from his passion. Now I want to talk a little bit about harmonious and obsessive passion. Now, my friend Sherry, who lives with us, we love to watch surfing movies. She surfed all her life. She started surfing at 12 and she's now 72 or so. She still surfs almost every day she can. She's a very good surfer. So we love watching surfing films. But you notice something about surfers or a lot of athletes is they're just so obsessed that their family, everything comes second to the next great big wave or whatever. I'm sure there are surfers that love their families and don't do this. But passion can become obsessive. It can hurt other people. But a harmonious passion doesn't lay your family down and ignore your family for the passion. It incorporates the passion with other things so that you can be a passionate person about things, but your family, your children don't suffer from that passion. So it's always important to ask yourself, is this an obsessive passion, or is this a harmonious passion? Is this a passion that brings cure, not at the expense of my family, not at the expense of my finances, not at the expense, but it is passion. It's something that's burning within you. You have to bring cure. You have to see this thing accomplished. You don't just get up in the morning and yawn and say, well, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. No, you've got to have passion. And that's really when it helps to have friends. Recently, a friend of mine that I love very much, she said, I want your book on creativity done by my birthday. And I kind of gulped and I said, okay, your birthday present will be my book. And I'm the type of person that needs a deadline. If I don't have a deadline, I have millions of ideas in my head. If I don't have a deadline, I have to make just right then and there. I tend to not do it, but sometimes we need friends to come alongside when we have a passion to do something and light even more fire underneath us by giving us a deadline. I just encourage you to passioneer. Find your passion. Find the thing for which you came into the world to do and be passionate about it. Be passionate in pursuing it, understanding it, looking at it as to how you can bring cure through creativity, through curiosity, through collaboration. Again, we encourage you to go to the notes. They'll have an explore session. There'll be lots of things you can do with this. And also look at the quotable quotes and plunge deeper if you like. There's lots of links.